So about 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to do some traveling for my other YouTube channel, Worth the Effort Woodworking. Originally, the idea was I was going to build myself a teardrop trailer. Even went so far as to get a frame welded up. But like most YouTubers, money was tight. Even though I only had about $1,200 in that frame, I was kind of running low on capital. So that had to be put on the back burner until I just saved up a little bit more money. Well, 2 years went by, and I still didn't have the capital to finish that teardrop. I had saved up a little bit, but you know, life happens, and you know, sometimes things don't always work out the way you want them to. So at the beginning of the year, I decided I would take that little bit of savings and I would sell off a lot of woodworking tools that I probably wouldn't need for the next 5 years, thinking that in 5 years I can reinvest it. And instead of finishing that camper, I wanted to travel this year. So I spent that money to outfit this bike with camping gear. Granted, very little of this thing, other than maybe the tent and the saddlebags, are items that are only dedicated to the bike. Everything else I'll be using in the teardrop eventually. But as I said earlier, you know, life happens. And instead of being able to go camping in spring and summer, it is now September. I'm now making my first trip. But that's also a good thing for you. Because over these 6 months, you know, every time I had a little bit of money and I was thinking about, I really want to go camping, you know, a little retail therapy went in and I probably bought a lot of junk. So whenever I get to my campsite and I unpack all this stuff, I'll go over all the things that a newbie like me thought I needed to have to accomplish my personal goals in traveling around the country. Granted, right now this is practice, but eventually I'm just going out for a weekend. But eventually my goal is to be able to spend a month out on the road, and this is hopefully going to allow me to do that one. I'll explain more of that when I get to the campsite. So that's not going to work. Let's try rearranging that. So that was a learning experience. Took a lap around the neighborhood. Did not like how it felt. It was quite obviously I had too much weight on the top. So I came back, reorganized everything, did another lap, came back, reorganized everything. I've got it so I'm comfortable with it now. I was a bit concerned when I first did it. When I loaded all this stuff up on the weightage for this particular bike, and this bike fully loaded can carry about 450 pounds. You know, me, helmet, heavy pants, all that kind of stuff. I am fat. I'm probably 300 pounds, which gives me 150 pounds here. I did all the math on guesstimating these weights, and I'm under that. It's big and bulky, but a lot of this stuff isn't that heavy, and the heaviest stuff I've got down low in the saddlebag. So I'm borderline on the weight wise, but it was just positioning it made it handle really weird. Overnight I thought of a few ideas, but I'm going to go ahead and test this one out, and maybe on my way back I'll try organizing it another way. Either way, those first initial rides, my impression was it sure would be nice just to have a bike with a bigger frame, a little longer wheelbase and a bigger frame, so I can attach it more in front of the rear axle instead of right on top of the rear axle.
And here was the setup last night. Got too dark and y'all couldn't see anything, but this was a quick setup for me. I didn't put up everything. I ended up using my tripod right here for one low tie down right there. I kept tripping over, and that turned out to be a perfect thing. It also became a nice little armrest when I was getting up and out of it, because, you know, I'm kind of fat. But there you go. It dewed a little bit last night. Everything's a little bit wet, but there was no condensation on the inside. See? No condensation on the inside, which is kind of nice. I basically put all my stuff that I didn't set up down here. It all stayed dry. Boots I had over there so I wouldn't get scorpions on them, and everything else. And here's the setup from the inside. Got a little mesh screen right here. That's the tarp connected to the bike. I left that like that all open all night long. I have a mesh on the two ends, as you can see, staked out right there. It created some wind flow over there. Down in the corner, I have my charging setup. It stayed up all night, charged up all my batteries. Two things that I found that were really useful is I've had these little clip lights for years. I got them at a White Elephant right there. I never use them, but I brought them with me. They turned out to be perfect. Just a little button right here. Turns on like that. And then you can clip them to stuff. So really useful inside the tent, because I would just clip them to whatever little strings I had. The other thing was this little fan made it so much more comfortable. Just plugged it onto a little rechargeable battery. It started out with 3 lights, and now it's down to 2, and it's been running at high speed all night long. Really great. If I wanted any other ventilation, I could have opened up this other side. This is a mesh screen and a little canvas on top, but there were little campers on the other side that didn't want them to see me. So there we go. That's what it was like on the inside. There were 2 mishaps this adventure here. I filled up my gas tank about 10 miles away from the campsite. This whole trip I've been carrying a 2x4 block with a string attached to it, and basically I was putting that under my kickstand because this bike is always leaned too far, because I put performance shocks on the back of it. They're 13.5 inches, so it sits a little bit taller than most Sportsters do, so it's got that gangster lean. Not too big a problem whenever it's by itself, but when it's fully loaded it was a bit tippy. So I was putting that block underneath it, and the string was so I put it on my handlebars, so I could, when I righted the bike up, I could just lift it up, wrap the string around, and I was putting it in this pouch right here. Even with this, I made sure that the Velcro was there. I think I hit a big bump, but whenever I got to the campsite, it was not here. The other thing was I brought along a roll-up gas can right here. Wasn't going to need it this trip, but it was, again, this is practice for whenever I go out for long trips. And I noticed this morning that the gas cap is missing. So my brilliant mind probably should have put the gas cap towards the inside so it wouldn't roll out. But this is secured both with the bungees, and I have a little C-clip or snap clip right here. So it's secured twice on. I just wasn't thinking about the gas cap. So I'm just going to pack this up here, and because I didn't get everything set up when I get home this afternoon, I will put everything up the way I wanted to if I'd gotten here in daylight and still needed to get some hours of work put in. Well, it's the next day and I am back home. I finished the video work for my other woodworking channel about 2 o'clock in Abilene, and then I just picked a few squiggly roads to get home. I didn't get home till after 10 o'clock because the last hour was stop and go traffic to go about 6 miles on I-35, and it took me till that after dark to get home because I made a wrong turn somewhere and spent about 2 hours wandering around, which was not a mistake. It was a really enjoyable ride through the countryside along some one-lane roads. So
had fun. Just that last hour was a bit of a slog. So now that I'm back home, I thought I would talk about what all I took with me. And as I take stuff off, I will set up the tent in the design I wish I had done yesterday. Lesson learned, always show up about 2 hours before sunset, not after sunset to set up. And then I'll go through the stuff I did use and stuff I bought thinking I would be using it. And please remember, this overpacking setup for a overnight trip is not me overpacking for that trip. It's me kind of trying to figure out what I need to take month-long trips next year after winter. This is all just practice. I'll give you a spoiler right now. I will not be taking this much equipment ever again on this bike. The bike handled it just fine, and actually cruising around on the highway, everything was stable, comfortable. I have upgraded suspension on it. I think there are 812s progressives in back. Don't hold me to that one. They were the heavy duty version because obviously I'm fat, so I went with the heavier duty version. And I have a cartridge conversion up front, so my suspension is actually pretty good. I bottomed out more on this road trip than I have the entire life of the vehicle, but it was comfortable, it was stable, until you went below 10 miles an hour. Now, you have to take my word for this. I kind of enjoy that opposite lock, feathering the clutch, feathering the rear brake, kind of parking lot maneuvers, as tight a corners as you can. I find that a lot of fun. I was so unstable on this bike at doing U-turns on the roads and stuff like that, because it seemed that once I got below 5-10 miles an hour, there was a real tail wagging the dog aspect of it. And you can even see that very first day when I had it totally miss under the range, just leaving the driveway, this kind of wobble where the tail was 3 seconds behind me, it felt like. That in repacking, dropping all the way as far down as I could, went away to about 25% of what that first trip was, but it was still there, and it wasn't fun. So this bike's chassis wheelbase, I just don't think is enough, because you pretty much have to pack everything behind the axle. So that weight is rear biased, affecting the front, and the rear axle becomes a pivot point instead of the engine and your body weight's pivot point. So for me, weekend travels, I'm going to be doing it on this bike and on this channel for the rest of the year, but over winter time, I don't want to, because I've got so much invested in this bike, and the reason why I went with this bike is because it is small enough that teardrop trailer I'm building, I can actually travel down the road with it sideways on that. I actually designed that teardrop just for that ability, and it's big enough that I can make long trips once I get to a destination like upstate New York or something like that. I'm in mid-Texas, to give you an idea. But yeah, after this trip, I can tell I don't want to live off of this bike for months at a time. Overnight will be just fine, because I won't need all the stuff I will be carrying. So I've got to have that capacity. So it'd be nice if I could save up enough to get a second bike, but I have a feeling I'll probably be selling this one. And on that way back, I was kind of going through my wish list, and an old Valkyrie would suit me just perfectly. Anyways, let's get to unpacking this thing. Now, my goal when packing everything on this is everything is tied down twice. Just in case something broke, there is always a backup, and a lot of them are reinforced 3 times. So you might think it's overkill, but that's what it took for me to be safe. I will tell you this. I have fallen in love with these spring clamps. This is where I carried my excess water. You will find me using them all over this place, and I'll put a link to the ones I use. I don't think they're brand specific. They're kind of generic. These are probably the heavier one. I like the stainless steel versus the aluminum ones, but you'll see me using them so much on this project that when I came back in, one of the first things I ordered for upcoming trips is more of them. Some more of these big ones. I really found it useful. My spare water, I had it clamped to the rack right there. I also had it Velcroed to the top of my bag right here, my tailpiece. Now I want to talk about these tail bags. Like everything, I got them on sale. Basically, a lot of my stuff is, I had a wish list and I came up with the money in the beginning, and stuff I knew never went on sale, like my tent sleeping bag combination. As I sold tools, I went ahead and bought them. But as I kind of kept selling tools, I had a little savings account and I had a wish list, and I knew I could buy it last minute at full retail. But if I don't need it until I needed it, why spend the money and wait until sales come about? So pretty much everything here, except for a few items, were bought on sale. I use Amazon a lot. I just put them on my wish list, and you get these little notifications when things pop up. If it's only a 10% discount, I didn't worry about that one. But stuff like this right here, where some customer returned them. So I bought them pretty much brand new, just not in the original bags, and they're perfectly fine for what they are. But the thing is, I wanted to mount them very securely, so I built these saddlebag supports, thinking I wouldn't have to use this crossover piece. But the thing is, if you have supports where you can bolt them down to your thing, well, they're a little bit below where the height is. So without this cross throwover strap, they kind of rotate around, and they were really floppy because you're supporting them about a quarter of the way down. So it just it was floppy. So I have these on the saddlebag supports, but I also had to have the throwover strap, mainly to hold the weight to squeeze them up so that they weren't moving around as much on the road. I was a bit disappointed in that, but otherwise, the overall functionality of this style of bag, I thought was pretty good. This side, I had a little strap over here. One of the things that when it popped up, because the saddlebags have these mollies on the back, was a little bottle molly support, and that's where I carried an extra, quarter of a gallon of gasoline for emergency things. I almost had to use it on this trip, which I got to be careful of that. On the other side, I kept my emergency medical kit on the mollies. That way, if I crash for some reason and somebody comes up, maybe they will see this. I wanted to keep this out in the open. So that was my basic setup. Above that, I have a luggage rack with a removable sissy bar. The sissy bar became the foundation for locking a lot of the stuff together, where I tied them down to the bike. This kind of kept everything in place. This isn't holding any weight other than this tail pack right here, which is on a little shelf of itself, but that's not that much. My thinking was, on a long road trip, there was stuff that would stay on the bike for pretty much permanently, and I would hope not to use it. I designed this back section right here to hold my tools and spare parts, a battery, emergency battery jump setup, a tire pump, one of those electric ones, that kind of stuff. And that was a pretty heavy bag. And on my trip around the block that first time, that's what I think contributed to a lot of that stuff. So that tool bag ended up getting broken up. I didn't take everything I thought I should be taking on a long trip, so that eliminated about half the weight of the tool bag, and the other half of it went into one of the saddlebags. So theoretically, this saddlebag I shouldn't ever go into, the one on the other side I shouldn't ever go into. This one right here, I was now going to treat as kind of my in and out all the time. If I was going to the grocery store and buying food, I would throw that there. It was my food supply kind of situation. If I want to take off my jacket, I would throw it in there, that kind of stuff. Up above here in this tail pack, I have a lot of my camping gear, like my camping stove and stuff like that, and I have a really cool charging setup for my digital nomad needs. And I'll talk about that later when I go through what's in this bag. In front of that, I had a my table. Yeah, I wanted to bring a table. I have a bunch of poles to go with a tarp so I can create a outdoor tent so I can sit up and stand up instead of using the tent I have for sleeping. That's just sleeping only. If I was out in the country, I figured I would rather have an open tent and a table to do my work if I'm editing all day long. And then I got this idea from somebody on YouTube, and I wish I could give them credit for it. I don't remember it, but I brought myself an umbrella. A very large umbrella, for the simple reason in Texas, when you're getting caught in the rain, a lot of times you're out from nowhere. I don't like riding in the rain, and in a really hard storm I could really see just pulling off in a drive somewhere and throwing a tarp over that, grabbing my camping chair, setting it up, and just using the umbrella to stay out of the rain for a little bit until it comes down a little bit. Also, if I'm stuck on the side of the road working, one of the worst things is the sun. So if you can tie off an umbrella next to your bike, you can work on your bike in the shade, and the umbrella doesn't take up much space. So it just seemed like a great idea to me, so I threw that one on in here. I also have my tripod. It is anchored by one strap, and one of the legs is going through there, and when I clamp that down on the legs and wrap something around it, it ain't going anywhere, and it's also quick access. Coming around to the top. This bag right here is probably the most important bag to me on this bike. If I'm going to be doing a digital nomad content creation for a month at a time, I don't want to risk some crackhead rummaging through and taking away my time, all the data I've collected, all the editing I've done. So I wanted to have this easily available to me so that whenever I go into stores or something like that, I can take it off the bike and take it with me. There are a lot more expensive things on this bike that crackhead could steal, and probably at some point in time, I imagine I'll be in the restroom somewhere and a lot of the stuff might get stolen, but all of that is replaceable. My time isn't. So to make it easily accessible, I have this little bungee cord right here. I can just basically pull this off, and you'll notice it's on one of these clamps right here. Now, its placement on top locks everything else down in case of a big bump or something like that. So I take that off, that goes in the store with me. I'll show you the contents of this and how this converts into an entire office when we get set up. Underneath that is just my toiletries bag. I put it up here because I figured that a lot of times when I'm going into a restroom or something like that, it'd be just nice to take a washcloth, all that toothbrush, stuff like that, to just easy access to that stuff for the few stops I have during the day. I thought it might be nice just to put it on top. And if this gets stolen, not that big a deal, but it did sit loose on top of this, but there was no way for it to come off because of that camelback. My floppy hat, and then my cargo net is actually anchored to this bag right here on the little side loops. And that was more reinforcement. That's kind of a third wave right there. This one right here is just anchored on with some bungee hooks. Once again, the bungee hooks are using these little snap things on the end. So I can just snap it onto the saddlebag supports, and there we go. Then I have one large rope that I kind of wrapped around everything like this way to squeeze it all together. So this top bag is held on by the squeezing rope, by the bungee cords, and by the loops on my sissy bar. This was all the clothes I took. I took an extra pair of pants, some underwear, probably too many shirts, both long sleeve and short sleeve versions, socks, that kind of stuff. But all my clothing went in here. I will say this, I didn't take a pillow. I thought I would be using that, what everyone said, just use your jacket, put it in a pillowcase and sleep on that one. That was miserable. I ended up using this as my pillow. It was soft enough, still not great. I'm taking a pillow on my next trip. My tripod is sitting here, and as you can see, I was struggling to get out. It was pretty secure. Then comes my tent, sleeping bag, sleeping mat, kind of all in one setup. This is from Wingman of the Road. This is the only thing I purchased brand new, and I'll talk about why I chose this later on, because it is a lot. I'm not going to say it's a lot bigger than the other options, because once you get a tent, then a sleeping bag, then a sleeping mat, you kind of come, the volume, it's not that much bigger. But either way, I had the strap, and then I had these bungee cords, and I was constantly leaning against it to feel what it was doing. On my trip out, I also had an additional rope going all the way around just this, but I assumed that the rope I was using for everything would serve the same purpose, so I thought this didn't need to be strapped down 4 different ways. 2 different ways, or 3 different ways was good enough. And once again, bungee cords with the spring clamps. These tend to go on sale quite a bit, I noticed. I think the time I got them, I got 2 of them for like $5. I'll put links down below to all this stuff. And there we go. Underneath that, just sitting on its own behind a strap, is the tarp. And underneath that is the bag that has all the stakes and stuff on it. And it too had a spring clamp to it. But you know, it was sitting underneath everything, so it wasn't going anywhere. This was really just using the weight of the camping bag to hold it down. Okay, around back, I have a blue rope right here that was securing everything together, even though each one of them was strapped down by themselves to the sissy bar. I did notice today that this bag had shifted a little bit on the side, but it was stable the entire time. Here's the black cord that was wrapped around everything in front of and behind the sissy bar. And it was important that I cross this one over both sides, and twisting it together kind of kept it secure. If I had put them on both sides, I felt it wouldn't have been as stable. Now, all the ropes I've been using, you see me use, I like this style. I started using these back when I was selling motorcycles for tie downs. I just find it a lot easier. They have a built-in loop on one end. For the yachting industry, I think they are like called lanyard straps or something like that, but I'll put a link to the ones I got down below. They go on sale fairly frequently, pretty cheap. Now, a lot of these bags that come with them, I bought a lot of these canvas ones because canvas is somewhat water repellent. It's not water absorbent, so an initial rain, my stuff's not going to get too wet. The fibers kind of swell up to make them waterproof with the coating you put on them. But even bags like these right here, they all come with some kind of strap. As just one extra security measure, I use a strap around my sissy bar to cinch them down. Now, these are not the most secure things in the world, I know, but as an emergency extra step, it makes sense to me. So anytime you have a strap, why not use them? This particular strap was a little bit loose to hold it tight. So what I ended up doing is the bungee cords that went around my tent, I put through them, and it took up a lot of that slack. So they kind of helped out right there. I imagine I probably could have even used them in the strap itself instead of just through it to take up the slack. But now I want you to look on the inside. I have this spring clamp right here. It's on a rail of my luggage rack. I imagine I could have put one right here, but that strap is hooked through there. So even if this comes loose, it's not coming off. I also have another one that's connected to the handles of this back bag. So this bag, through that, was strapped to that. That was secure enough to keep it on the bike. Then the straps going around the sissy bar kept it stable, and then just the ropes are more around securing it just kind of kept everything tight. Inside this bag, I have 2 chairs and a cot. And these little stringers that come with these Rothko bags, they go through the two zippers, so the zippers won't come apart, so you know stuff won't go flying down the road just because it gets unzipped. You know, to undo it, you just undo one of them, and your bag opens up, which common sense. But this bag right here was all my camp furniture. So with all that done, I can remove my umbrella, my tent poles, and my office table. Okay, now let's go through the saddlebags. I like this design because I have an outside pocket and an inside pocket, and this inside pocket is expandable a little bit. I had to expand the other side, and this string right here just comes all the way around, and then it kind of pops out a little bit. Gives you another extra inch if you need it or something like that. Inside this outside bag, I kept all the stuff I used to tie the bike down, plus my microphone. I use a wireless mic. This one actually right here hooked up to the GoPro I have in front of my fairing. So the sound I'm getting is more back here towards the exhaust, whereas the sound you get up front is mainly wind and the mechanical from the top end of the engine. So it just sounded better audibly to have the microphone back here. And inside here I have extra rope. One of my more creative ideas, and you can buy these on Amazon. I just got a stainless steel ring to keep extra ones of these clips, and then all my tie downs that have the clips, you just kind of store them here, so I can store them in the bag, so I can carry extra tie downs and stuff like that, and keep them not in a spaghetti mess. And there we go. All the tie downs and extra C-clips I have, ready to rock and roll. Nice and non-messy. Plus my extra rope I have secured with a piece of Velcro around the center, just in case I needed it. Inside this bag, I think as I mentioned earlier, some GoPro stuff. I kept some wood stuff for starting a fire. I'll show you the stove I use a little bit. I have used it before. It works out pretty well. I'm a woodworker by profession, and the one thing I didn't take on here was my toolkit that I've got to take on a month-long adventure. On that first trip around the block, it was just way too much weight, so I got to figure that one out. But when I'm on the road, I'm constantly making spoons and stuff like that, so wood is a good fuel source for me, and I'll go over that in a second. And then on the inside, extra toilet paper. I do keep a half roll of toilet paper in my vanity bag up top for emergencies. And then I had my food bag, and inside this was mainly canned goods. I know everybody tends to use the meal in the bag, boil water, throw it in there, but those are expensive. The cheapest ones are $10, where a can of soup is, $2. And if you want my cooking suggestion, I always look at the picture on the front, and if I see a vegetable on that one, I'll buy a can of that vegetable too and mix it all together. If I don't see a vegetable on front, I'll buy a little pasta, and it just, one of those soups and a little bit added to it fills me up, adds some weight to me too. And that's it in this saddlebag. On this side, on the outside pocket, I've got rain gear and an extra set of gloves that aren't cloth, so if it got cold on me. Inside this pocket, I had a little wood block, but as I mentioned earlier, I lost that one. On the back is my emergency medical kit, and then on the inside is basically a bag with spare parts, my tool bag, lowest spot. I'll go over what's in both of those in a second. Spare tire repair kit, and my emergency battery pack, a torque wrench, and some tire irons just in case. And that's it that was in this saddlebag. Now what I did in this tail pack is probably what I'm most proud of in my whole kind of designing a digital nomad content creator kind of setup. Now this top portion right here, I'll go over all this stuff that I have in here. Little knickknacks and stuff like that. I used a lot of it, and I think it was kind of useful items. I'll go over that in a second when I get the camp set up. I put a flashlight in the Molly on top of this one. You have Molly on the sides. I have a can of bear spray over this side. I have a red bandana on this side just to make sure people notice me. And attached to that bandana is another little flashlight. This one tends to burn out batteries pretty easily, and it's really bright. This one right here, it's just bright enough to look around, that kind of stuff. But in here is a really cool setup, okay? Paper towels. I have a little back strap right here. I carry extra Ziploc bags. You always might need them. I have my GoPro stuff right here. I have this box right here, which is cables, a small battery pack. I had this battery pack in here. This is the battery pack. No, I use my smaller one to, I have a really tiny one that's what I use to power that fan all night long. This one used to be my go-to master battery pack, but I have another solution now. I have me a mug, a stainless steel insulated mug, and the reason why I have this one is I saw a video with Scooter Tramp Scotty in all my time when I started playing this and I started getting it, and he had some ice cream that he was sharing around the camp, and one guy didn't have a cup, so he didn't get ice cream. So I never wanted to miss out on a chance of ice cream, so I'm carrying my own cup, and it sits on top of my towel. You might not believe this by the current physical shape I'm in, but in high school and college, I was a springboard and tower diver. These were the towels we used to dry off on. They worked really well. They call them Sammys. I've had the same one for years, and every time I go camping, that's the towel I use. It sits on top of that to save space. Then I have my stove. This was a bit of a splurge, but I did get it on sale. I got this one because it burns wood. I'm a woodworker. It makes sense for me, but if I'm out of wood, it also burns alcohol, so I carried a bottle of Everclear in here to use as a backup fuel for the stove. I have a little bottle of Still Austin for the other stuff. I got 2 cutting boards. These are those cheap ones right here I found online. Really flexible. They fit in anywhere. You can use them for a lot of different stuff. I actually use one for writing because on a park bench on the wood and stuff like that, just putting a piece of paper on top of that one. I used 2 because one for vegetables, one for meats, and then just my little tourist book. I also have a little kit from Sea to Summit that has a cup, a bowl, and a plate, and the plate has a metal backing, so you can see I've already done a little bit of cooking on it. Yeah, it sits right on the stove, pops up, and you can boil water in this if you don't want to use the pots that come with that cooking kit. But next is the exciting part. I have this Anchor battery, and I specifically sought out this particular one because it is one of the only battery sources that can charge itself and charge other devices at the same time. Even some of them really expensive ones, they can only do one or the other. And that was important to me because if I'm working all in the evening and all night long, I drain all the batteries and then I'm riding the bike to go someplace, I want to be able to charge up this thing that I might have been working with all evening long. It might be depleted, and running my computer, recharging my batteries, film batteries and stuff like that I need to be fully charged when I wake up in the morning. Well, I hooked up something to my taillight because Harley's, the taillight section, they use a circuit board for the worldwide market, and I have a previous video showing you how I did it, but there's an extra accessory socket in there that I wired to so that only electricity goes to it whenever the ignition is turned on. So I can leave this plugged in here all the time, but if I leave my bike for a few hours to go hiking or something like that, it's not going to deplete my bike battery charging everything else I have. It will shut off drawing from the motorcycle's power. And I do that with a simple little SAE plug. I have one permanently down by my turn signals that comes off of my brake light. I plug it in there. I run this all the way up. I plug it into a cheap, USB charger right there. It has its own fuse block in it, and that plugs into this. So there I go. I have a way to charge all my devices anytime the bike is running without risking draining the battery. It all operates off of the accessory circuit of the Harley. And I'm sure other motorcycles have the same exact setup. Also, this one right here has a little pop-up light where you can set it. It's fairly low. Set it up, it brightens up more, then it'll brighten up even more over by the campfire. So if I'm working after dark, I can have this charging my laptop, cameras, all that kind of stuff, and lighting my work. It might not sound a lot cool to you, but this was a game changer once I figured this out, how to charge my electronics so that I could stay months at a time on the road. It's that simple. Oh, and by the way, that item goes on sale so often. Don't take the 20% off sale. Wait for it gets to 40 or 60% off. They're out there. Also back here, I carried my spare gas tank. I talked about it earlier. I lost the gas cap. It's secured with these bungee cords. It's also secured with a little snap clip, so it's not going anywhere. Whenever I need to fill up the gas tank, it basically, I wish they had something that kept it together. I had to go get a Velcro strap, but it can go over that right there, and you can secure it down here to actually hold the gasoline whenever it's full. Then you can, hang it on your handlebars, and when you want to fill up, you have a little hose. You just kind of fill it up. I think it worked. I've not used it. This was based on the recommendation of a lot of people that don't want to carry those big plastic jugs. This is not a permanent fuel storage system. You can't leave non-ethanol gas in here for months on a time like you can a normal gas can. This is basically, I get out to the Big Bend region and I know I need to go 200 miles for my next tank of gas, and this Harley only goes about 100 miles on a tank of gas. This is basically 3 gallons. My gas tank holds 3.3, so I'm looking at 1 refilling with this right here. And they come in different sizes for different people. Now, I got those saddlebags first because of that great deal I had on them. Once I got those, I started looking at the other Kiriakin stuff, and I put this one particular tail bag on my wish list to monitor and wait for them to go on sale for one simple reason. It had the 2 compartments, one down below that held a lot, and then this top compartment, which I could really see using as my junk drawer. And that's exactly how it was. On my trip, every time I stopped for gas or a snack or anything like that, I was in here looking for little things like that. So it worked out pretty well. I thought, I'm just going to empty everything I have in here, and I'll talk about all the little goodies. And most of them came from other YouTuber ideas on what to take. But all it is a junk drawer. One last addition I have on the bike that I want to talk about is a saddle. I have the Fat Man Touring Solo Seat from Mustang kind of saddle, big cushioning, wide, that kind of stuff. Most I've ever done on this bike on a trip before yesterday was about 150, 200 miles. On a good day, I might burn through 2 tanks of gas. That first day, I did about 325 miles. I was kind of hurting towards the end of the day. This seat had completely bottomed out on the rails, and because I was occasionally bottoming out on the bike, it took a few impacts. I had bought this thing. It's a gel pad kind of setup. You basically put two straps, a strap underneath your seat that you just kind of leave there, and it hooks on these two little hooks right here. And then the front strap I can kind of wrap around. This is how I rode for the first day. On that initial test ride I took, I put this on here, and what I found was I can flat foot somewhat on this bike because of the raised rear suspension. When it's unloaded, when it was fully loaded, it was very easy for me to flat foot, and I could get my legs fairly part apart to handle that top heavy nature. But whenever I put this on, I was literally on my toes, because it does raise you up a little bit, somewhat straight down. So my stability wasn't as good with that back heavy weight when I was at a stoplight with a little wind gust and stuff like that. So I took it off for that first day and the first half of that second day. But, right around 6 o'clock yesterday, I was just going down straight roads forever. I kind of pulled over. I was in pain. I put this on, and it was a game changer. And I'll put a link down below to it, but I'm not going to say that this model is the greatest because I haven't tested them out. But it's kind of that honeycomb gel. It's not a foam kind of setup. So there's a lot of air in there. But it made that last 4 hours of the day so much better. I was in pain before it, and it was much more tolerable after it. I should have been riding on a long trip with this the whole time. I know some people ride with sheepskin. That might be something I'd try out, because I don't think that would raise me up as much. But I'm never going to be weighting this thing down as much as I did for this trip anyway, so I don't think it'll be that big a deal. But for a long trip, if you don't have a good quality saddle, I might suggest finding something. This one was fairly cheap. I want to say it's less than 30 bucks. And here's what I'm talking about by the saddlebags being somewhat floppy. You can see what I needed to do, because the Velcro strap they have to go over a bike wasn't enough to clear this distance, so I just used other Velcro right here. It seemed to hold okay, but once I take this, unhook this crossover strap, you'll see the saddlebags just kind of settle down. There's nothing in this. This is just the weight of the bag, and you can see it's just kind of floppy without this strap bringing it together on top. So take that in consideration if you want to use this style of saddlebag, because it seems like all of them are that way. What needs to happen is this hook on both ends that you use to strap to your bike, it needs to be up here, not a quarter of the way down, because that's where the floppiness happens, because it's just too far low. It needs to support from the top. So there we go. Everything that was on the back of that bike all spread out now. So let me set it up, and when I get my office set up, we'll sit down and I'll discuss a few things, go through my infamous junk drawer, and talk about some stuff that I'll probably leave behind even on my month-long trips, but definitely what I'm not taking in the upcoming trips for the rest of this year. And there we go. This is what I envision it will be like as a digital nomad on the road. I have me a desk. I have me an office chair. This is a Helix Cafe chair, and I went and tried out a lot of them. This is the only one that felt like a real chair at a desk to me. And if I'm going to be out here working all day long, I wanted something that's going to be more comfortable. Lounge chairs, you're just way far back. But that doesn't mean I didn't want to lounge around a campfire after work, or maybe carve a spoon or something like that. So that's why I needed two chairs. One for sitting at a real desk, one for lounging around. Now on the lounger chair, I went for the Helix, I think Savannah. It's their top of the line tall chair simply because I'm fat and I'm old. I'm approaching 60, and whenever I stand up, I didn't want to be so low to the ground. This was comfortable enough for me, and it's designed for heavier people. Both of these I got on sale. I literally got this one just last week because right before the camping trip, it happened to go on, I think it was like 35% off. These weren't selling for a while. I think they're starting to sell now, and they were like a half off deal on the Helinox website when I did it, but they are available on Amazon. I'll put links down below to both of them. The tent setup went really quickly this time. This is like the fourth time I put it up, less than 5 minutes to do the tent. This tarp setup is the first time I've ever done that one, so I was cutting all the strings to it, just trying to figure it out. I could probably do it better next time. But this is kind of what I was thinking. You know, if I'm at a single spot all day long or even a little half day, I can set this up. I can work for a few hours. At night, I just fold these little collapsible tents down so the tarp's on the ground, or if it's going to rain, maybe I throw it over the tent itself, and I can get in and out on the other side just as easily as I can here. Both sides are vented. All four sides are, have the two ends also have vents that are closable too. So lots of airflow in here, and I don't need to be in the tent until I'm going to sleep or to get out of the rain. Told y'all earlier, this was my office. The bladder for the water fits right here. This first little bag has all my memory cards and the cables to make my laptop setup work. Also earphones so I don't bother other campers. And then I keep my iPad in a Ziploc bag just in case that water bladder leaks or for whatever reason. And then I have my keyboard, my computer stand, and my mouse set up right there. And this is my office. This is a stand. I'm going to sound like an Anchor fanboy for a little bit, but this works so well if you want to use an iPad for real work. It folds down flat. You basically just plug into power on one side. In my home office, I have an HDMI setup, so I don't even use the iPad as a monitor. I use it as a touchpad over on the side, and I have it on a big screen right here. I have my hard drive inputs over here. I have the fairly cheap iPad that doesn't have a lot of memory, so I use external memory, and I prefer it that way. And then I can use my pen for drawing whenever I need to. So there we go. My iPad, I set it up from the little stand, and then I run power from my power station to that, and I'm all ready to rock and roll. I will say last night I have the two aliens downloaded onto this. So, I mean, I watched 2 movies last night when I couldn't fall asleep. Pretty cool. So here's all the stuff I have for my meal preps. As I said, the centerpiece is this. I know a lot of people like using those jet bowls and stuff like that, but I'm a woodworker. I have access to a lot of kindling all the time, it seems like. So this made sense to me. And these come in a little, you know, you got your cooking pot. The size I got is not the smallest one, just because if I'm ever out with a group, which I imagine some of the meets I go to, I will. I have this little alcohol burner. I have tried it out. It works pretty well. If you can, this is how you can turn the flame off if you want to, but it also has, when you get the flame off, you have a little cap you can put on so any unburnt alcohol can stay in here. But once again, I have a little flask of Everclear to refill that one. That's if I don't have access to wood, I can still at least cook. So this is my backup in cooking. And it's actually, these alcohol burners are designed, they designed it to work with this setup. These are dirt cheap. Again, I got this particular one on sale from Solo Stove whenever I bought this whole setup. And then you have your fire ring, right like that. You go get it and we'll try it out. So I threw some shavings from my lathe and some scrap pieces right in here. This little burner, it has this mesh screen on the bottom. Can you see that? Just go to their website and all the people that talk about it. But it's kind of a smokeless system. So cold air comes in here, gets heated up, and it gets shot out of these like a jet to reburn the smoke. That's what's make it smokeless. And the fire is actually above the bottom so that there's air coming from underneath it. So what I got is I'm just going to put a paper towel down on the bottom of it, right like that. That way the shavings don't go below the mesh. And I'll use some wood shavings as my starter. Fold the paper over. And then some of my turning blanks right on top to catch fire after it gets going. And the top has a little cutout, so even if you have your cooking stove in there, you got little twigs or something like that. That's what it's designed to burn off of, twigs, not firewood. So I imagine if you're in a national park or something like that, they don't want you picking up big logs and stuff like that. But if you're picking up sticks and stuff, I don't think that they would mind too much. And there we go. For food, I know a lot of people like those prepackaged, boil up your water, dehydrated stuff. Me, not so much. Here's some gizmos. I like eating with chopsticks, so I got some titanium chopsticks, which is kind of nice. And I use chopsticks a lot for moving the fire around, stuff like that. This is something from MSR to clean up your pots and pans, a little scrubber, then a little scrapers, which is kind of nice. That's just a gizmo. In the 6 months between I started collecting this stuff, you know, a little shopping therapy to make me feel like I was getting closer to going camping. You know, one week I saw one of these and it was a little bit of retail therapy. I have some titanium spoons and stuff like that. I'm not sure they are worth it for the motorcycle camping, but I did go ahead and get a separate long spoon. And one thing I like about this particular one, they are, what is it? It's got a foot for a logo. I can't quite see it. Again, I'll put it down. A lot of them, the little scoop on the spoons didn't seem to be very thick. So I eat soup a lot. That's what my main meals on the road are, so that just didn't work. And I brought me a bigger spoon right there, though half the time I'm probably going to be carving spoons anyways, but a lot of times I give those away. My dinner, some Fritos in there. I have salt, pepper for spice because I'm a white person and I don't know how to cook very well. I have some pasta bags. I have a can opener in case I have a can that doesn't come pop tops. And then I just buy these a lot of times. And if I look at the front of the can, and it has a green bean in the picture, I just buy a can of green beans and mix those in together, and that makes my meal. If it doesn't have anything like that right there, I just boil some pasta before that one, and as much pasta as you want to fill you up, and it works out pretty well. And you know, about half of that that'll fill me up for a long time. So that's my cooking setup. Do y'all have any suggestions on how I could improve this? As I mentioned, I'm carrying 2 cutting boards because on a month-long ride, I kind of figured I'd probably go fishing or maybe rabbit hunting or something like that. So one for meats and one for vegetables I would pick up at a grocery store, stuff like that. The Sea to Summit setup, it is actually something I got on sale. I think they might discontinue this particular model, these colors, that's why they were on sale. But right there is a cup in case I don't want to use that steel mug. Here is a bowl, though I doubt I will ever eat my soup out of that one. I'll probably just eat it out of the pot. And then here is a cooking pot if I don't use that, or if I'm cooking a dish that requires 2 of them. This bottom is metal, and you can put it right on the flame. No problem whatsoever. I did do a test meal cooking out these, worked just fine. It also has these little things, so if it's hot, you don't have to worry about it. You can steam vegetables. It's got steam holes on the top of that, though I did not do that one, but I do eat a lot of broccoli, so I'll probably be thinking about that. And once again, just keep your eye out for when these things go on sale. This particular set is a little bit pricey for the retail. Yeah, I couldn't afford that. And I do and as I've said many times, you know, just if you want something, if you don't have to have it right that second, just put it on a wish list on whatever shopping site you use, and it'll probably go on sale within, 90 days at some point in time. That's just how shopping works nowadays. So how about now we go look at my junk drawer. A really nice Mora knife. I am a big fan of this knife company from my wood carving and spoon carving knives. I love the Sloyd knives. They've come out with these. It's really expensive, but it's holding its edge very well. It's easy to sharpen. I like the fact that the blade is straight all the way down. It doesn't have that micro bevel over there. So I can use this for a lot of different things. It comes with a strap. I was even thinking about putting this on the outside of my bike, but that probably would draw too much attention. I got it in orange just so I could easily see it in my bag. This is a little battery charger that charges the fan the whole night. I oftentimes use this on my motorcycle to plug into the GoPros so that I can keep them running for more than an hour. So all day long, if I can power it off of this. Screwdriver for my GoPros. This is a little impulse buy. It's actually from Sea to Summit. It is a clothesline that I could stretch from one pole to the other, so I can go wash my clothes in a sink somewhere and just dry them here before the evening, so I don't have to pack as much on a month-long trip. This was something I bought in consideration of that, and it's designed so you do not need clothespins. It's got these little cinch points so that you can put it around. It's all in one, so to speak, and it just folds up pretty nicely. And then you can clip it on to whatever you need to. I thought it was a clever idea. I have not used it yet. I actually saw somebody else recommend it. That's why I found out about it. I keep these Altoid pins. These right here, I keep foam for earplugs in because I ride motorcycles. I have 3 juggling balls because I'm trying to learn to juggle because my hand-eye coordination really sucks. Tissue, blue tape, because that's what everybody needs that. A little specialty glass for specialty drinks. A steel O-ring, that's one of the, I bought a couple of these. I got a bunch of them when I ordered them for clipping on all my bungee cord nets too. I also, the set of these I welded into that frame that I bought. Some important medication. This right here is a bug net that you put over your head, over your hat, and it kind of keeps the bugs away from you so you don't have to wear mosquito stuff on your face, which I don't like doing. So I put on my hat, I put this around, and the bugs stay off it. I've used these many times before, just haven't used this particular one, but I understand the concept. A bunch of people make them. It was just on sale when I was buying the other stuff, so I picked it up. Another Altoids tin filled with, what's this? Well, Altoids, because I like them. There are a bunch of people that make these headlights that go on your head. I like this one because it has a little clip on it, so you can clip it. And I was using this last night in addition to those little ring lights I showed you earlier to light the inside of my tent. and I basically set it up with a green light, and it didn't attract as many bugs. But you have several different settings. I figured this was a recommendation from a motorcyclist who had to do repairs. Even in the daylight, it's nice having this when you're having to see in a tight spots to be able to focus a light wherever you are looking. So that's one I got, and it is a, oh, I can't see it. It's a Nero brand, and they made a bunch of them. I just got the cheaper one. And it's rechargeable. I try and stay away from batteries as much as possible. My GoPro remote, I like this one because it fits over my watch band. So I actually have two of them. One for the front of the bike, one for overheads if I ever do that one. So I can turn the GoPros on and off as needed and then start and stop them. So it worked out pretty well. And the batteries on this last like 60 hours, so I could use this for a few months and not have to worry about it. An egg timer because I suck at cooking, and that tells me when they're done. And then I have this right here, which contains some lighter fluid, which I will use with these little hand warmers, which you'll notice I stick them in little bags so that oxygen doesn't get to them. And basically it's a, I forget that type of, it's in a little Ziploc bag. So whenever I want to turn it off, I deprive it of oxygen by sitting it in here. But this will, like, it kind of just burns in here, and you can put it in your pocket, and you can adjust the temperature by how much oxygen gets into it with this bag right here. And it really does well for like football games and stuff like that is where I've learned about these. They make two different sizes. This is a Zippo one. And the smaller one goes for basically a football game, and the bigger one I think will go for longer. And that's just to keep me warm if I needed to. This is just a little fuel gauge to tell you how much of this lighter fluid to put in there. Also in here, if you don't want to carry this, I have this as a lighter fluid carrier. Then a normal flip lighter. And then a small Bic, or with a short little handle. This is one of those propane burners. And I got this handle right here for lighting up that solo stove. So this bag right here is basically my flame bag. And the bag is, I just pick up these bags. They come with little things. I just reuse them. I like the fact that this one was mesh because it allowed this stuff to breathe off. And there you go. I still got some embers burning in here, but that lasted about 30 minutes. Just those few little blocks of wood would have boiled that, and I could have kept it going for a lot longer. So that's the setup I thought I would need if I was going to be digital nomad content creator for months at a time. It ain't happening on that Sportster. I am going to be riding that Sportster and taking weekend trips to do some videos for my woodworking channel to get content there. Looking forward to that. But this was just too much. I can see not taking this whole tent section, not taking my table, probably just taking one chair, probably still take my cooking setup, definitely taking my office setup. I can work inside there laying on my back, but if I need to do some hard work, I'll just find a McDonald's or something like that to set up there. But I've got to reduce the bulk on that Sportster to get all the camping gear in front of the sissy bar so it is over the axle, not behind the axle. Y'all tell me, what else could I do? I didn't really like having a lot of stuff in the saddlebags because of their design, and those kind of cloth saddlebags I don't think hold that much weight. But I did put the heavier stuff in there. Now, let's look at that tool roll. Probably the heaviest thing I took on this trip. So I'm having to refilm this section because I lost the audio on it. Understand, this is the tool kit that I kind of put together with the idea that I would be on the road for a month. So if I needed to make an emergency repair to at least be able to get to a shop, I wanted to be able to do that on my own for almost everything that would likely go wrong with the bike. I do have a list of parts that I would like to pick up used. I would like to get another belt for the Sportster, that kind of stuff. But I already have a lot of things out here. Now, I didn't think I needed to have a different collection for short trips to long trips. But if I'm just sticking within a day's drive of my home, I'm going to be paring this down quite a bit. And it is somewhat bike specific. This is designed for the Sportster, for the common things that Sportsters would need. I imagine if you had different bikes, we would need different stuff. For example, this wrench right here, which I still plan to cut off, I need for doing the rear axle. You can use a big, huge monkey wrench, but because the Sportster has two big bolts, nuts on the axle, you need two big ones. So might as well have just one dedicated to that and then use a large monkey wrench for the other. There's also, because of the vibration of the Sportster, I felt the need to have a cheap torque wrench. Also, if I keep this at the top of a bag or something like that, if I ever do need it whatsoever. Now, I have mag wheels, but I went ahead and picked up some tire irons just in case I could help somebody else out there if I'm on a group ride or something like that, and they don't have the capacity to carry the amount of tools I'm going to have right here. Other tools. Now I have two bags right here. This is a tool bag. This is a parts bag. I'll go over the parts bag in a second. In the tool bag, up top, I have some blue gloves. I have a utility knife. I have an entire socket set. Now in here I tried to keep everything to just a 1/4 inch socket, but there were some things that I needed 3/8 with because I just couldn't find it. So I have a set of the cheapest socket sets from Harbor Freight I could get for a 1/4 inch, and I got the full set, both metric and SAE, because the Harleys have both. But you also notice a lot of other sockets in here. Over the past months, as I've been going through this bike, preparing it for long trips and stuff like that, I went through, obviously changed all the oils. You'll see all this in my other videos. I replaced the rubber motor mounts. I replaced every single hose and cable on that bike. And I kept a lot of the ones that came off of it because they were still good, and those are in my spare bags. But I would also note what sockets I needed. And if I needed a specialty socket, I would write it down. And then I would go to the pawn shops, because a lot of times they have a big tub of just sockets, and you can pick through it and pick out what you need for a 1/4, 50 cents, $1 each. And it's a cheap way to do that one. And I would make sure I had an extra one of every single bolt I have, so I could just stay in this toolkit. These are cheap stuffs. I don't mind if these get stolen. In fact, I wouldn't even mind gifting them away if I see somebody stuck on the side of the road that needs something. So these are why you do it that way. I also have a set of Harbor Freight wrenches, and there are a couple specialty ones in here that I had to go to the pawn shop to get out that didn't come in the set, and those I found out from doing work on the bike. I have some specialty kind of wrench that does little spring clips and stuff like that. I have a large monkey wrench. I also have a small vice grip, and I specifically chose a small one because I can also use this as a shift lever or a brake lever if I needed to. I have, these Moto hex wrench. You got your SAE and metric, and then the star ones. I have some wire cutters and stuff like that. I have my chemical bag. Inside here are Loctite, JB Welds, some Mix It Up, 5-minute epoxy, that kind of stuff in here. I have one of those multi-screwdriver tools. I have my 1/4 inch wrench, and then until I can find everything I need in 1/4 inch, I still have the 3/8. I really would like to find a conversion from a 3/8 down to quarter, and then I would just need one wrench. I wouldn't want to go up from a quarter to 3/8. I don't think that would be the right way to go. Then I have my small monkey wrench. I have a screwdriver specifically for adjusting the carburetors. It's a really small one. It also has a little magnet on the bottom for being able to pick up parts in tight spots. I have this right here. I don't know where I got the container for. It's just a small container. One side has O-rings for my drain plug, because if you're on a month-long trip, you're probably going to have to change your oil at some point in time. And then the other side has different jets in case I go up to the mountains and stuff like that. I find out I need a problem, or it gets clogged. I can just swap out a new one. It doesn't take long to do jets on carburetors, and I have a whole video on that. And then I have some normal zip ties, and I have some of these industrial beefy, half-inch thick, holds 1,000 pounds kind of zip ties for emergencies. Zip tie cutter, spark plug socket, which I need to put that in with the other bag, and my suspension adjuster tool. The big wrench I do plan on cutting down. I just haven't done it yet. And that will give me two 1 1/8 inch sockets. You don't need a whole lot of torque for that rear axle because it has little retainer clips to it. You just need to make it snug. So 2 short ones of this size would be just fine. Now for the spare parts. And understand, I am riding a 20-plus-year-old Sportster. So a lot of these parts are specific to that bike. You would notice I have a little thing of Velcro wire ties. This is the kind of thing that you use for the back of your desk to kind of organize all your cables. You can buy them just dirt cheap, snap them off, and that right there will allow you to secure stuff lightly. You have excess wires coming out, hoses, whatever. So it's just kind of nice to have that. Obviously, you need some black electrical tape, and you need some spare wire. Inside this box right here, I have a lot of electronic stuff. I have shrink wraps for doing the wires. I have, obviously fuses, and go through and figure out what fuses you need for your bike. I have some turn signal relays and stuff like that. All these are cheap items that probably will not go wrong. But hey, why take the chance? I did go ahead and get a brake lever and clutch lever in case I go down and break one of those off. I have spark plugs. I take out my old spark plugs that are working just fine. I swap out spark plugs every other oil change. So, I have them just in case. I'm forgetting the lady's name. She also tours on a Sportster. In one of her videos, which I recommend you follow her if you're interested in this kind of touring. She does really great work kind of just getting into it. Well, the spring on her kickstand failed her, and it was just an utter nightmare for, a $2 part. So whenever I saw that, I see other people having problems, I went ahead and ordered the part. I have all the old cables I took off, throttle cables, choke cables, a clutch cable, all that kind of stuff is in here. I'm not going to pull out the clutch cable because it's pretty tight in there. And in here I have, sometimes when did my repairs and updates and stuff like that, the old gaskets, I replaced it. Like whenever I clean the carburetors, I put all new gaskets in and stuff like that. If the gaskets I took out didn't look bad, they went in the Ziploc. Will I reuse them on purpose? No. Will I reuse them if there is an emergency and I need them? Yes. And in here are just some more parts, like I have turn signal, brake light bulbs, turn signal bulbs, headlight bulbs, that kind of stuff. things that might go wrong, that could leave me stranded or in danger of somebody else hitting me because they couldn't see me, I had the solution. Why risk your life by not having a 15-cent part? It just doesn't make sense to me. But here's my dilemma right now. All this stuff is heavy. You know, if I'm an hour away, I probably don't need to carry spare clutch levers, spare cables, that kind of stuff. I can push my bike to the side of the road, call for some help, and then just come back and pick it up at a later date. This is all for stuff when I'm in the middle of nowhere without any other resources. You gotta have it. And for the rest of this year, when I'm just taking these day trips, I'm going to be paring this collection down quite a bit. Well, that's my video. It's a really long one, but that's everything me as a noob took. Did I overpack? What did I forget? Those are what I'm asking you. And maybe I gave you a few ideas of what might be suggestible for you to carry. Either way, have fun and get out there for a motorcycle ride.